Oh, well, you heard my voice before. I've been talking so much, and that's been rude of me because I didn't even introduce myself. Well, I am Kenny Takalo. I come from Johannesburg, Soweto. I came for the T-shirt. Well, I'm one of the people that have been collecting these T-shirts throughout the programs and all that, and I'll tell you what, I've loved every single one of them. I mean, I remember the one with the South African flag, the beautiful, colorful flag that definitely gave hope to us and inspired us. And what's the statement like on the other bottom, that with that red one? Remember that of Africa? And we had this one with the fist and all these women and all that. And you see, Africa is a very, very, very powerful continent because you don't often hear people play themselves to be loving Euro, that they would insist you refer to them as Europeans, but Africans do. You don't often hear someone saying, I'm European American, but Africans do. Only if Africa had the evidence that was there in the Testament of being loved so much. But again, yes, the map of Africa somehow gives us this idea of, it's really big, some revolutionary T-shirt with that fist and all that. It is appealing to some of us. And now, well, I know you would have rather kept it a secret, but what I'm seeing in the current T-shirt is a heart. You see, when you have something like that to a community that may have been exposed to some level of abuse, it says a lot of different things. Of course, anything that is revolutionary represents something that we own, which is power, and anything that is revolutionary says we are free to act the way we do in order to voice ourselves. But then when you have the heart, we all have a different relationship with that. You see, for a man that has been emasculated, looking at a heart like that, it's like, what is something with the heart could turn me into a wimp. But for any man that has been exposed to an environment that is caring and loving, they can identify with that heart easily. Try to give a woman that has been exposed to all kinds of abuses something that bears a heart. They've never had a relationship with any warm heart, and they may not identify with it. But only women that have been empowered and loved can be able to identify with that heart. Well, a bit about myself. I hope I don't take everyone's time here. Well, those who have been with me through the years, I mean, you can tell, I could tell you volumes of books about South Africa and all these other things, but it's not often that I spoke of myself. Because really, I really liked the background, the behind the scenes, because this country that I love so much took center stage. Well, here's a bit about myself. We do talk about childhood and families and all that because we have been exposed to this HIV thing and all, but in the history of this country, it is not with the beginning of HIV that we've witnessed those childhood and families. We've had them before. Men used to leave their children with the women, and if it was overwhelming for the woman, she'd either go through alcohol, drugs, or whatever. Then we end up with that childhood and family. But when in my case, it was a mother going to prison with an absent dad. So, being the biggest male in the family, of course, you take charge, and man has got to take care of business. And that's how my relationship with power began. Identity you talk about, I struggled briefly with that. Because I am in Africa where it takes a village to raise a child. I never saw that village. It took a child to raise himself and his siblings. So you have 3 girls and 3 boys, and you're the biggest and you have to take care of that. But then it touches on the recipient of help. What kind of help would you as the recipient want? I think the biggest is inspiration. You see, when you are inspired and you have an environment that is enabling the inspired to act, nothing beats that kind of help. But then there is a very simple word, and that word is I care. You see, if someone acts or says, does things in a way that says I care, for you the recipient, someone cares if you fail, somebody cares if you are hurt, and somebody believes in you. And so fortunately I had that with the teacher who really believed in me, and I became, well, at the time we called it monitors, and today, not monitor the lizard, of course, monitor what we call prefects today, and that was empowering, because that was exclusively to these children who were nicely well-dressed from very good families. So even for the disempowered, emasculated communities, we always look at them as a collective, but amongst themselves there is all those divisions, and there is all these things that are exclusive to so-and-so, when the likes of me were excluded. But then with that sense of empowerment, I had to make decisions at an early age. I forged my own individual identity, because I knew at that time that unless I did that, I would be frustrated because I faced rejection wherever I went. Taking care of business. This is a funny story, because my first business was at the age of 13. And by then I was exposed for 2 years in the generation of an income. And so I look at all these other children within South Africa who could have been of my generation. In one way or another, they would know that emasculation, because every child is entitled to this sense of euphoria that I'm next to my mom and dad and nothing's going to touch me. And of course, we were deprived of that. And we had to make peace with that. And so let's look at an average American kind of parenting there. Because you had a generation that believed that to prepare their children for the world, and now you have a generation that believes that to prepare the world for their children. So this is what is happening. An average American person who is in a position of power and who is caring enough would want to come and change your whole world, because they believe your whole world is rather oppressive. In the meantime, insulting all the knowledge systems that already exist, creating that divide. So maybe that's another way of training American or European people once they are young to form a relationship with those in Africa or Asia or whatever part of the world that they would care about. And so when people come here, they bring that. A good example is when I was constantly asked about South Africa and what Nelson Mandela dies, because that's when he was sick and all that. Well, hey, can you tell me what would happen should Nelson Mandela die? And I look at them and start thinking, well, it would be a sad day and South Africans will mourn. But while politically, do you think there would be stability? And I start looking at these people and start thinking, this is the Western trained mind asking me these questions about me. Because when you talk about what South Africa would become when Mandela disappeared, it's like asking me what am I going to do. So I had to train the Western thinking mind that Nelson Mandela came from within the ranks of these people. No other community trained and taught Nelson Mandela. No other community can claim to have created him except for an African community, meaning that he had espoused the values of this community. of course, even when he dies, those values will remain within this community. But then the question says, will you behave when he's gone, because you are an unruly African society? So you need this one person who will always, be monitoring you. And now, should this one person that we trust so much to monitor you dies, are you going to behave? Because that's the thinking, the Western mind thinking. So, Nisha, I became a different recipient. I am assertive, particularly when it comes to my Africanism, particularly when it comes to this country. So that's the only way we can school even those that will receive from, by being assertive. And those of you who've followed me on Facebook, you may be aware that I was busy with getting school uniform for some children. And some of you may have offered to actually get some funding, and I said no. Because the best thing you can actually do for a disempowered person is to take from them. Because then it teaches them that they have something to give. You create something to lose. People never know how much they have to lose till they actually lose. So you put them in a position where they should earn, where they should give, then you know that they will value it. And you are building character by so doing. And so why would I choose uniforms? I know what it feels like to be barefoot and going to school in the middle of winter. I've had that experience. And I know what it feels like to be rejected, particularly for those that may know your story of your compromise set. But those do not matter. Those who matter are the would-be rejectors. So, you see, to be rejected by these is one thing, but to be rejected by other strangers because you do look the part is something else. So, I would empower those young people because they can make strangers, they can actually make friends with strangers and start a better history for themselves. Because we all need a beautiful history to look back to. And so when they look this end, those who reject them do not matter, but the would-be rejectors would not exist. And so we limit the number of those who reject these children to, quite a few, because then they would be looking decent and they would be appreciated by the new strangers, and being appreciated would help them think better of themselves.
But is this on? No. It was Kenny's story, and possibly many stories like this, that led me, and I just want to quickly tell you my very short journey of how I came to be where I am, where I was a donor and a recipient, and which led me to our partnership with Nisha and her team. It was through many stories on the ground, like Kenny's story. I'm going back to possibly 2000, which I think touched the hearts of many of us in our local church. And we just felt that God was calling us to do something. We weren't quite sure what, but we needed to go and discover. And so we approached a non-denominational leader in the community from Diaconia, who many of you probably know, and we asked him to lead us on what we call the pilgrimage into the Cato Crest area, to see what HIV and AIDS was doing to the community. And it was really life-changing for all of us, because there we went into this informal settlement, literally 5 k's from the centre of Durban. And we're only talking 15 years ago, where there was a lot of denial, there's a lot of stigma of HIV. I think at that point the government really wasn't acknowledging that there was a serious crisis in the country. And we went in and we went into these homes and I still get emotional just talking about it. But it was life changing. And I must compose myself. We just realized that a group of us could actually make a difference. And so I worked in that community, taking healthcare kits to the very disempowered healthcare workers at the time. And that was probably for about 8 years. I got caught up in politics. There were so many issues at the time with the Department of Health. And unfortunately it led me, thank you, to challenge really what I was doing, how to do it, and to possibly do it better. And I realized then, I'd have political parties phoning me saying, don't you want to join our organization? I see what you're doing in the community. And I'd say, no, I'm doing this for God. I believe God's called me to do this. It's my compassion, it's my connection with humanity, I want to make a difference. And so we partnered with many organizations, both government and non-government organizations. And then it came a critical time when somehow we linked with Nisha and her team came into my life, and we were then working with vulnerable children in Cato Crest School. And it was so unbelievably uplifting, because here was this group of Americans who came out and just wanted to make an amazing difference. But people started questioning me, what is your motive? Are you doing this to try and get funds, as I've mentioned? Are you doing this to, and not one of us was taking a cent from anyone. There was no money involved. We were just doing it out of our hearts to try and make a difference. And we rallied our whole church. And then Nisha came, and we just saw the light on the faces of these children. And that really was when I realized that we were really making an impact. These children were transformed, and of course, America, from whatever that, most of them didn't have TVs, but America, to have Americans in the school was something so awesome for them. It was, you all know what power America and Americans have, and Nisha's talked about it. And to come into an informal settlement and a disempowered school with very few resources, it was life-changing for those children. And so that was a season when we were very involved with Nisha. And during that process, or during that same time, I walked a journey with a woman who phoned me in the middle of the night and just said, please help, I'm dying, the ambulance hasn't come to fetch me, I've been trying to get an ambulance. Cut long story short, we went in sort of early Monday morning, and there was a little bag of bones just lying there, and it started a very long relationship with this person who's called Bongiwe, and I didn't think she was going to live. Her CD4 count was less than 50. We got her to hospital, and the doctors at McCord's Hospital were just unbelievable. They fast-tracked everything. They shouldn't have fast-tracked ARVs to her because she had 4 different stage 4 infections. She had cryptococcal meningitis, she had TB for the second time, she had pneumonia, and they were just amazing. They actually just transformed her life. I walked that journey with her, and she's now our coordinator. I said to her at the time, and I didn't think she was going to live. I mean, for 6 months, it was a long journey, visiting her every day. And then she had very bad side effects from the ARVs, but then one day, she just sat up in bed one day, and she just said, I'm going to be fine. And it was just like night and day. And it was wonderful, and we started a journey with her as our coordinator. And she wasn't really involved at the time when Nisha was here, but we were able to transfer a lot of the skills to her, and she looks after vulnerable children in that catered preschool, and I've moved on to other areas where we're empowering young people really through education. But Nisha and her group from University of Michigan have come and really left a lasting impression and changed a lot of people's lives. And for that I can only say, how can you say thank you for that? It's just something which is sustainable, and when you change someone's life, you've changed them forever. And so that's my short story. It's always an emotional one. But thanks to Nisha that she was able to partner, and we partnered with UKZN as well, and we were able to make a difference. And that's something that it taught me, is that we can't actually do these things on our own. We cannot stand as an island. We need to partner, share our skills, share our resources, share our compassion and our love, and just lift each other all together. And that's what we were able to do with Nisha and all you students, and many of you who've been here, you have met and known for many years. Thank you, Nisha.
Hello again. I'm listening to Belinda. I'm getting all emotional. Just pray to God that we come. My relationship with Nisha started from her first visit to South Africa. And it was actually Belinda that brought her over to our school with the community. Like she says, Crest is like a calling. That's what it was for me. I started at the school in 2000, one of 5 teachers first employed in this brand new school, sitting on the floor and teaching children. As an Indian in an African township, that was the first step that I took, first big step.
This has been an emotional journey for all of us. We can all laugh together because it's been a big journey.
I think most of us, when we sit down in our homes and we look around, it's something that doesn't touch us. So looking for a job was my priority. And at that time it was difficult for me to actually find a place. And I heard, hey, there's a school in this area. Why don't you check if you can get a job? And the whole thing seemed like a dream. I walked in, my husband dropped me off at the gate in a rural area with all these teenage people around me. I walked in and I saw this beautiful tree in the school. And that became the symbol of what I was supposed to do. It was that I was going to plant my roots here. And that's where I would grow and be the shade for the kids. The night that Nisha and her team came to our school, the kids actually sang for her. And it was a winter's night, really, really cold. They stood there and they sang their hearts out. And when I watched them, with the cold, the rhythm, their energy, and their voices were amazing. You know, it was so weird. You're standing there as if you've been taken to another world. Here it is, freezing. All of us are frozen standing there. These girls have got dresses, no jersey on, of course, because their jerseys would all not be coordinated, so they stuck on with the dresses so that they would really look smart. And they sang. And you would see the cold mist in front of them as the words came out. And we had the most amazing principal. Her name was Gugu, who is now late. She died of cancer. And she had a vision for Cato Crest. And Nisha came in there and actually helped her live that. I used to always tell everybody, Cato Crest was a private school in an informal situation. In that little rural area, we were the private school. We made sure we gave the children the quality education that they needed. And it didn't mean because they were poor, because they didn't have uniforms, and because they were really, really unfortunate kids, that they were going to be deprived of the best that we could give. The program, POA, touched the hearts of lots of us in that school, because we would see kids being sick on a daily basis. A child would fall and hurt his knee, and you'd have to run to put on gloves before you even see to them. And a mother's natural instinct is to forget about all of that and not think about yourself. I would just do the things that I needed to do. And I actually believe that God put me in that place for a reason. I had a job to do. And those were my kids. It's very, very sad when politics and personalities blur people's view or vision of what is really happening out there. And when we're looking now here at the recipient and who is giving us things, how do we take it? Do we take it with both hands open? Or do we keep one hand in the back so that we can calm ourselves quietly and put it in our pocket? It's a horrible feeling. We're so used to people asking you, what are you going to get out of it? That you're afraid to actually take it. And you're also afraid of change, because everything that changes along the way terrifies you, and you wonder, what next? And with me, staying in, I was listening to Rocky speak about me, and it's so weird, like Nisha said, it's as if I'm sitting here, I'm already gone. But I don't see myself that way. I think one of my biggest flaws that people say I have is that I love too much. I need to pull away, and how do you do that when it just comes naturally? You can't do that. That was one of the things that I did at Cato Crest, but my children were amazing, and I know most of you that actually came there would actually know that. I think when you're receiving, like we did from Nisha, it wasn't just the information that we've got and the way in which it was put to our students who needed this information just to understand what was happening. Because here it was, people were dying around them, and they couldn't understand, because these are primary school kids. You're looking at 9, 10, 11, and it's happening around them. And how can they protect themselves? There's rape. Most of them are living in a shack in a one-bedroom apartment where mom is sleeping here, her boyfriend would come and be sleeping with her next to her, and the kids are sleeping in the same room, listening, not knowing whether it's allowed. Cato Crest was an eye-opener for me. The things I found out that would happen to kids was horrific. It was really horrific. And it seemed the norm. That would horrify all of us is the norm. That the boyfriend could sleep with mommy and turn around and sleep with the daughter. And no one would know. And no one would say anything. A little girl in grade 1 would walk to school by herself and walk back home to an empty home and have to cook and take care of herself. She'd walk through the shacks, and very easily one of the neighbors could grab her in, and there we hear next, this little girl has been raped, and now she's HIV positive. How do you prepare yourself for those kind of things? I think education is the one thing that we can give to our children to make sure that they have a better life, so that they are empowered. And that's my role. That's my job as a teacher. I think with everything that I do, it's not just about the lesson. It's not the maths and the English and the things that I have to teach them. Yes, they are the core, but I like to teach them the values because I believe that families that these children come from is lacking. Some of them are living on their own with brothers and sisters and no parents. And even if they are living with parents, how much of guidance do they really have? So our kids are really, really deprived. I teach them two things. If you ask the kids in my school, what is the one thing that I hate the most? The thing that I hate the most is lies. And they actually say that. They know it. If they have to say anything to me, I hate lies. You tell me exactly as it is. Even if you have stabbed someone and they say, oh, miss, yes. You rather tell me you stabbed someone than lie. And if you did, I'll say, okay, now what can we do about it? Don't tell me, I didn't do it, but he did it or she did it. I hate lies. I really, really hate it. I think you have to be honest with them. And these kids know. They know when you are being honest with them. I think with POA, when it has come in, working with these kids, they look at America as a brand. That's what you are. You're a brand. You are all celebrities in their eyes. And when you see them, you can feel it. You feel their energy. They are your fans, your biggest fans. They want to touch you. They want to feel you. They want to hear your voice. Your accent is different. All of that is intriguing. And what is intriguing is always they want to know more. So when you come in there and you are teaching all the politics of science, I really, for me, I don't. I really don't. It's all about the kids. And you have made a difference. I know already with the school that I'm in, and unfortunately I had to leave Cairo Crescent. It was a battle for me. I cried and it all became position orientated. That's what it was. It was about promotions, it was about the unions, it was what is this American woman coming and doing in our school. I heard it all before I left. But when I had left, Nisha wasn't there. She wasn't there, wasn't around. So I left without knowing whether I would ever see her again. And it was a struggle for me to actually make that decision that my work here is done. Like I said, the tree was a symbol of what I was supposed to do in Cairo Crescent. Because I felt that God had put me there for a reason. I had a job to do in this community. And when it became unbearable and I eventually plucked up the courage to leave, I realized that I found another home. And no matter where I go, there will always be children who need me. So I'm, yes, in an area which is a little bit more affluent. But the children who come to our school come from rural areas. You'll be amazed how far they travel just so that they get a better education. What Gugu and Basa wanted was to dispel this notion that township education is lower than all the other education that the Indian, the colored, and the white schools would give. She really tried hard, and she really did it in all the time that she was there. It was when God realized that He wanted her, and she left, that things slowly started to fall apart. But there's always work to be done. And even with you, you're going to find challenges and things, doors are going to be closing in your faces. Whatever the reason is, always do the right thing. Always do what your heart is telling you to do. And you'll definitely succeed. And that is what I do.
Okay. This is hard. I'm not going to cry. I have cried and my eyes are dry now. Who is the recipient? And I noticed the way that USAID was written in the program. And I've been in the field long enough to know the ins and outs. Because as I would frequently report, we do things differently in Zululand. On the international conferences that we frequented on a yearly basis to report on what we do on the international office, in the international offices of our institutions, to promote international education. So that is how I started my reporting. But in my very long CV as compared to others, which you have read, one of the things I did was to look for warm bodies among staff and students to help write the UniZulu side of the funding proposals that were funded mainly by US partner institutions. So I know the story. I'm not going to bother to ask who were the recipients, because I've also said that on the ground I was responsible, because whatever the project, the institution of implementation was UniZulu, and I was responsible for the practical implementation of the project on the ground, which means students and staff from UniZulu were responsible for the success of their own projects. And I'm very proud to say that all the projects that were funded, because USAID they don't carry any favors. You either do something correctly or you sunk. You are late by 1 second of a minute to submit your proposal. It's thrown into the, what do they call it, the 13, whatever. You don't get funding. So I'm used to all of that. But at the end of the day, once you get the money, you have to account. And because the US partner institution is the accounting institution, it's actually easier on the implementing institution, but still they have got to deliver on their side of the bargain. And UniZulu is one of the proudest recipients of that kind of aid over the years. And our own HIV/AIDS project, which we started, which had the peer education unit that had people that you see in this room, was one such project, jointly funded. We were recipients, of course, together with our American counterparts. That was not my training ground, but the training ground for staff members and students who voluntarily, despite the fact that they were overstretched, sat down there, did what had to be done to submit our piece of the funding proposal and get it approved. And their smile, I mean, by the time the project was implemented, they were tired and overwhelmed. So that's it. Okay, this aid expanded over the years. Fulbright scholars, we did it differently again at Zululand. We called USAID officials to come and address us, but once they have addressed us, I again had to trudge the corridors to look for applicants, both among staff and students. And any success story in Zululand, it was a big issue, big story. They got those funds, they went overseas, they did these degrees, and they came back. Big story. It might be insignificant in other institutions, but in Zululand, all those things were necessary to be done to get that funding and for the money to be used correctly for the people to come back and make a difference. And I am grateful. I'll end with pure aid. I'm also, I just want to touch upon the fact that towards the end of my stay in Zululand, I'll also say a little bit about hugging trees and talking to flowers later. The search for monies expanded to European scholarships, the Erasmus Munduses of this world, the British Commonwealth scholarships. We have people who are studying in Europe, both staff and students. Some of them have come back with PhDs, work of this small office. Some of the students, unfortunately, had to do this to their own parents. Because when they came back from the 6-month visits, the 1 year paid for visits, I'm answering the question, who is the recipient? Their supervisors would stall graduating them. We have such horrific stories. There is this particular person, I am afraid to this day to ask whether she has graduated or not. She is one of the many who are victims of the fact that they think they are now better than everybody else because they have had this international exposure. Such things happen. I'm more excited. Who is the recipient? The latest trend, both from the US and Europe, is to allow students, particularly those who are doing senior degrees, to do it half-half. Half in the US or Europe and half in South Africa. That I tend to support because the skills that you get overseas, you can then bring back home sooner. And then you are doing your research home, which is where your focus is. Nisha was very careful about that one. Who benefits? To me, an excited scholarship recipient was worth all the hard work. To me, those faces of those women and ordinary workers at our institution who were trained in the HIV/AIDS module were worth everything as to why it is important for Nisha. What was the word you used when you wrote those proposals? Whatever. because prostitute.
Prostituting.
Yes. Because we benefited, and to this day, we are one with these people. They don't look upon us as privileged lecturers and students because we participated in the POA project together, and they were able to go and teach, apply it in their own households first, before applying it to their larger communities, because these people, they go to church, and they know someone who's got a child who is dying, who they were able to revive well back then. Guess what? The story continues. I'm done.
I'm very emotional now, but I want to touch on the fact that through our 21 years of democracy, we've had a lot of changes in our presidency. Mandela came with the reconstruction and rekindling society together. And this is my personal view, actually. And then Mbeki came with the implementation of developmental policies. And Zuma came with moral regeneration. It takes a community to build a child. And looking over the years, what is striking me is that in our communities, when you watch US shows, I always question myself as to why is this happening. We adopt as South Africa, we adopt a lot of overseas actions with European and US activities. And we forget about ourselves a lot. Because if you look at us, we've got these high walls built for ourselves. It takes a community to build a child. So that I cannot see what is happening to my neighbor. But when you look at the US and European shows, they don't have these high walls that divides them, you know. It's really touching to our souls. And also, as to who's the recipient, we are the recipient, we can't deny that. And a lot of people, it's like a ripple effect, a drop in the pond, you know, there's a ripple effect. So the module came, funded the way it was funded, and now it is our responsibility to do that ripple effect. In my class, I've got a girl, 16-year-old girl, HIV positive. Ever since we opened for this term, she hasn't been coming to school. She's been frequenting herself. I've been busy with my exams. When she was called to the principal's office and her parents were called, she said that I'm going to finish my matric. I'm in grade 11, but I'm going to grade 12 and finish my matric, then I will die. Because Mr. Nkosi has told me that there's nothing that I can do which I cannot believe. I'll rather achieve, I'll rather die within the journey of fulfilling what I need to fulfill. And her parents have said that she will be my responsibility. And you know, it's too much because she now completely depends on me, and her parents are on the side, you know, and it's difficult. It's difficult, and also there are a lot of HIV positive kids who walk long distances, 20 kilometers to come to school on an empty stomach. We have changed our recess time to 10 a.m. from 11 because you will see kids lining at the kitchen with, you know, with huge dishes, and they will fill them up and eat only 2 spoons and close the box and say that I'm going to eat at home with my family. We are the recipient and we are doing the ripple, you know, the ripple effect. What I think it's also answers the question of why I'm staying in Canada, why am I there? It's a traumatizing situation because I'm coming from a township, from a family that has seen its struggles, but not that much, not in the way that these kids are experiencing. And also, we call these kids at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., we call them back at 5 p.m., 9 p.m. And they will sleep, you will shout, some of the teachers will shout, call them names. And they will tell you that my stomach is crying and I'm on medication. you have to constitute yourself, Felicia, because it's for positive intervention that brings positive change. Because I believe if we can influence the mind, we can change the attitude and the behavior. And also, if I can, we established each one reach 5 through the pedagogy of action. So we'll say that I teach 1 and that one teaches 5. And also, at UNISUL, it was a ripple effect, you know. Learners will now understanding because we will share with only those 5, not so much group, a group of 5. Have a group of 5, teach that group, and then those should, you know, go and teach others. And some will say that it helped my family to understand what is HIV/AIDS. I remember in one of the campaigns, one girl testified that through this module of peer education, my grandma fetched my uncle from a falling rondavel back to the house and nursed him. Because that is what we do. If you are sick to death, we take you out, we cast you out, die alone, and you will even kick the foot, you know, and you will see yourself. And where I'm from, it is what is happening. Recently, there's a guy who died through HIV/AIDS in the community. And the manner in which he was, he couldn't even go to the mortuary. He had to be buried immediately because of the state of his body. We talk of, Belinda talks of ambulances. It's a crisis in South Africa. You call an ambulance, it will come after 2 days. And when it comes, the families have started to mourn because the help didn't come at the time when it was needed. So we are the recipient, and there are lots of recipients that you cannot see and you cannot go to them, and they do not have a privileged opportunity like me to come and share their stories, because I regard myself as the face of them, you know, that I've got that privilege to come and talk of what the module is really doing for them and for the community of South Africa. So I think, yeah, as I have said, for me, there are a lot of people who are asking me, why are you staying in Uganda? You know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And on Friday, I'll be hosting a career week. It's a June month. It's a youth month. So I've tasked, since I work with the RCN, the Representative Council. So I told them that in my absentia, you have to organize everything for yourself. I will organize the material for you and everything, but it's your responsibility. Whatever careers that you think you want to do in this school, you know, just come with them. And on Friday the 10th, we are going to have a career day. So everyone will come to school dressed up in their own careers that they want to do when they finish matric. And I got a call from the principal that your project is going great. The learners, you know, are hands-on. Everyone, even the naughtiest one, is interested in this. It's something new, something that has never been done. So the pedagogy of action module, with these activities that you have to do, to actually do in order to share the knowledge and the information, it brings out that creativity side. It makes you rethink how you can make people be part of the solution rather than bringing solutions that can never work for them. So people can think, people are not just objects. It's just for you to spark that thinking ability for them so that they can be able to use it and be the recipient at the far end. And yeah, thank you. Everyone is crying.
Any responses? Can be so. You are so beautiful. You know, I don't have any words to tell you. I don't think you should stay. I think you should leave. For a lot of reasons. One, for your own mental health. And there are other things you need to do to help that place in a more efficient and constructive way. You have to have a lot more power to help that. But what you say about being the voice of those who cannot see, I think is important and shows that you are a conscientized person. And you know, I know that I count you as one of my POA students because you wrote as part one of our dispatches, and we all sat down and read Freire together. So I'm very, very, very proud of you, and the passion with which you speak. It's very clear that this moment of speaking is very, very important. That you're able to talk this out and share it with us, and we understand it, and we support you with that. It's part of your ability to cope with it is that you must speak this. And I'm glad that is happening. And I want my students to hear what really is the front line. Because that is the front line of the HIV epidemic, which everybody thinks is just, no, you can take drugs and then everything is fine. Mm-hmm. The infections are not, the deaths are being reduced. But the infections, particularly for young women, are still continuing. So it's still going on, and I know that I'm personally tired of HIV, as I've said before. But I think the larger foundational issue is gender inequality. That the people who are being infected have no power over that. And until we begin to do real work of gender inequality, I don't think we're going to get. It's not the drug science, although it's useful to keep people alive. But to sort of the perpetuation of the issue has to do with gender inequality and poverty inequality. And those are huge problems that I don't think the module can solve. And so I'm beginning to do work specifically on that issue now. Because I don't think we do enough work on gender across the board at all. We do a lot of work on specific things, but we don't do enough work on gender at all. A lot of the beneficiaries of gender equality are people who are in university, people who are privileged, people who have access. At the very bottom level, the gender inequality is as though the feminist movement never happened. And so we don't do that kind of work. We have women's studies programs all over the United States. And do you know what women's studies programs do? They write books. They talk about issues. They do studies. They stay in their offices and do them, and then they teach us, students, about it. Then we write papers about it. And so we don't have people who are educated going into the communities.
we delegate that out to those who can struggle there. But people like myself and people like you should be on the ground working with women, but we're not, because you get a nice job, you wear a nice outfit, you go to your office, you drive your car, and you write a paper, and you be in your cell phone. So we have to do work on the front lines, and until we go there, it's not going to happen. And so I appreciate what you're doing, but you need more people there. So I want you to get your more education, go back to that school, build it, and make it better, so we can come there. Because I wanted to go to that school. But that's not true.
It is true.
But the logistics was too difficult. But maybe in another era when all these other people are running
it. The question of recipients for me is, you are in primary school, and then you wonder sometimes how important is it to actually bring this information to the little ones who barely understand lots of things. And as far as Nisha and her team coming over, besides with the teaching of the POA program to the kids, they generally come in with a little donation for us. She calls it a little one, but it's a huge one to our kids. And we use it for them and things that they actually require. You know, Nisha, you talk about funding foundations have their own agenda. And that is why when you're looking at funding for your program, it's based on what you are putting out there. But the people out there don't actually get to see where the money is going. And I think those little pictures that you take of our kids when you come to our school is things that they need to see. Because when we always talk about POA, it's students from America coming to a primary school. And yes, you are treated as a celebrity, but at the same time, Nisha makes sure that every single one of you introduce yourself so that the kids can actually learn a little bit more about you. And in doing so, we expose them to young, vibrant people who have degrees, who have doctorates, who are professors. And those are just words to them until they see you personally. So they have something to look forward to. In their lives, there's so many things that are going wrong. But they know by looking at you, I can actually aspire to be like that person. I can be that way because he's so cool in those jeans and the way he dances. I can do that. You know, it seems silly, but it's not just the issue of AIDS. It's giving them confidence. And even in the selection of the children, because you are there for such a short time, how to select which kids participate in the program. It's difficult to choose 20 out of 160 to actually be there. So you choose these kids from different backgrounds and hope that they gain enough from there to actually take it forward. And I deliberately make sure I put in children, 1 or 2 children who are very quiet and withdrawn, so that they gain confidence. And when you are giving out the certificates and they are there, and you notice that the rest of the school is applauding them, this was a child that no one even noticed before. And that confidence just comes out in here. It inspires the rest that are sitting there, that are also shy, to actually come out. So it's not just HIV and AIDS that you're putting out there. It's so much more. It's so much more. Thank you.
There's tell me some friend, my brother. The other Uma is like more fly than there'll always be those demonstrations, but there's this one that talks about the gas mask, long oxygen mask, but they would always warn you, but if you have a little child with you, use it on yourself first, and then when you are okay, you can use it on the child, because the child would want a strong parent to be around. And I guess that's the advice that you can take, my brother. Before you reach a burnout, and the best way you can actually serve your community is by you're taking a step back to gain more empowerment. And again, that little breathing space may help you view things, in a much broader way. But otherwise, I'm extremely humbled by your work, and you one of the bright stars, to be frank, because children will grow up, but children who are raised will grow. So you are helping raise these children so that they are not caught up in the self-raising of themselves, because children who raise themselves encounter those challenges that they should not be bothered with in the first place, and growing up becomes a challenge. For them, growing up is a lot of work, and they would rather be happy to escape the process of growing up. But then when there is people like yourself contributing towards them being raised, they don't worry much about growing up, but they worry about growing. So thanks for empowering those young females, because if I'm allowed to use the language, it's a crazy, crazy environment when the very people who should be the pillars of the society are the ones that are exploited only because physically they are weaker. You see, beyond any revolution, men would have memories of the abuse and all that, and women will have a vision. I mean, post-World War II, post the revolution, women always had a way of saying, okay, now this is where we'll be going, whilst men feel the buzz because they are angry, they feel emasculated and all that. And instead, the very people who are pillars of our society are the ones who are killed young, because you kill a dream, that's as good as killing them. It is rather sad when we live in a society that would have women existing with a trained helplessness. So thank you very much for rather acknowledging the fact that we are not raising children, because they remain children, but we are raising people who would become women in their tomorrow, and they do need empowerment. Thank you, my brother, for the work that you do.
We're almost finished, is that correct?
Yes, can you hear me? Is this working? We technically have a break for the next 8 minutes. Do you want to extend that for a few extra minutes?
Is something happening at what time is it?
4:30 to 5:30 is the last panel.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should probably close this up now and have us do a little bit of a breather. When is our tea?
Tea is now.
Yeah, that's what it is. I just wanted to just close this off by saying that sitting on this panel are partners of POA. I always say there's a POA karma because we connect to the right people. And everyone here is heroic. Every single person here is doing heroic, beautiful work. And I am always mesmerized by them. And you can see that. So I'm very blessed, we are very blessed and fortunate that they took the time to come and be with us. And we are not talking about our recipients or the people who support us. We are listening to them and their voice, and they are part of us. We are Simonie one.
So it's 4:23 now. Tea was supposed to be from 4 to 4:30, so can we aim for 4:45? Cool.